very bullish, but today it's not to be. We'll explain exactly why things are looking the way they are and how exactly we got to this level as well. In the meantime, though, we even checking on the local index, and we're only seeing the South African listed property going into some positive territory, around 0.1%, and that is 2% lower though for the JSE All Share overall, pushed down by financials, resources, industrials. Even the banking counters losing more than 2%, 3.5% down for the resources, as gold and platinum miners lost out quite a bit. This is despite the fact that just yesterday we saw Impala Platinum as well as Anglo American pushing out some really positive numbers out of their earnings picture as well. Distel coming out with some positivity there despite the lockdown, despite the fact that we saw a prohibition on the sale of alcohol. Distel still managed to pick up their sales and their revenue by 14%. Kind of tells you just how resilient their business is in the midst of everything that is happening. We do have a few companies that did go higher. RDI did manage to go more than 33% higher. It now sits just above that 25 Rand mark. In terms of stocks that are sitting down, well, you could name them all really. At this point, Anglo American is the big one. That sits at 5.5% weaker, should I say, in this trade. It's now sitting at 589 Rand a share there. All right, onto the commodities board then as well. Down goes the oil price, currently sits at $66.47 a barrel. The yield story when it comes to the bond market is still very interesting, and I said we'll unpack that now, and that is actually pushed a lot of these into some negative territory. Platinum price going down 1.33%, just hanging on to $1,200 a fine ounce, but it's $1,760 though for the price of gold. That's gone down 0.5%. In the currencies, we're now sitting slightly better off, but we did actually start the day at 15 Rand and 6 cents against the US dollar, weakening again past that 15 Rand mark. So it kind of tells you as well that there's weakness in the Rand, but perhaps some strength elsewhere in the world. We'll get to unpack exactly where. Against the euro, 1.25% weaker as well. We're at 18 Rand and 12 cents and 20 Rand 81 against the British pound. Bitcoin losing 3.4%. Warwick Lucas from Galileo Capital joining us now to get a tilt on this market picture. Warwick, it just seems like a bloodbath. I mean, there's a Michael Jackson song that just says blood is on the dance floor. That is exactly what this looks like right now.
It certainly seems messy, Arabile. I think a big part of the issue was that markets were in a pretty much priced for perfection place. We had stocks up very high on the idea that, well, bond markets are so low, there's almost no yield whatsoever, and that means that we're in a TINA market, TINA being short for there is no alternative. And so it was buy on shares, and they were very, very strong indeed. Now, of course, when the bond markets are behaving like this, where suddenly there's a little bit of concern and disruption around the bond markets, the picture becomes somewhat more cloudy. And not only bond markets, of course, taking a hammering. That's really where the worst hammering is going on, but also shares or equities joining the pity party.
Why exactly are bond markets so tumultuous today? What is actually going on? Why is there such a big, shall we call it, free fall, if you want to say that?
I think there's several factors that come in here. As with any kind of big event where you've had central banks step in and provide support, there's always a concern within markets, and they deal with it very tumultuously as to whether or not the intended cure will be slightly inflationary or very, very inflationary. Now, what we've seen is a series of fiscal stimulus. We've seen monetary stimulus. We're generally seeing a bit of a growth, or I should say very strong growth rebounds from the lows caused by the corona crash and coronavirus issues. So this is leading to concerns around, well, how will the central banks taper the interest rate policy out of this? And of course the issue of, well, how strongly will inflation rebound?
I suppose then the inflation story, one considers the fact that the Federal Reserve out in the United States just this week did actually give out the sense that, look, things may still remain the same for quite some time when it comes to the interest rates out in the United States as well, with regards to trying to find some sort of way to boost the U.S. economy. And yet things are still at play in terms of seeing the negativity then come through right now. With the passing, perhaps tonight is when they're voting on that $1.9 trillion stimulus bill. If that passes, does that change things?
Well, in terms of underpinning growth and so on, I mean, that's a plus from that corner. But I think there is one issue within that whole stimulus package that has been causing very deep concerns. And that was the issue of the minimum wage in the US. Now, in 2009, the minimum wage was set at $7.25, and it hasn't been adjusted at all since. Obviously, the US has relatively low inflation, so that in inflationary terms shouldn't have increased that much. The number being touted around within the context of this stimulus package is in the order of $15 an hour. And I think that is where we're starting to get some bond vigilantism coming in, some real concerns that we will now have wage cycle type inflation coming through, and with the doubling of that minimum wage, and I think that is where some of the biggest concerns might be coming through.
All right, very interesting one there as well. The local currency has also taken a bit of a hit of late. Yes, it's better off now, but having touched and gone past that 15 Rand mark as well, I suppose that tells you a story. It's Rand weakness, or is it US dollar strength here?
I think it's genuinely a little bit of confidence on basically shying away from volatility where possible. So I'm afraid the Rand's a casualty of that.
Yeah, it's going to hurt, I suppose, in the long run in some sort of ways as well. Just very quickly then, Warwick, we also got quite a bit of earnings news as well out yesterday. So much really just happened there. Maybe let's touch a little bit on Anglo American. They seem to be keen on changing things around, and they seemingly are doing that. The PGMs did them a whole lot of favors, but it's now up to the rest of the business to kind of pick up the slack as well, right?
Absolutely. Look, I think precious metals clearly leading the way there, but the commodities broad outlook is looking quite good. Copper prices are excellent, and obviously then there's a certain amount of offset, say, from coal businesses. So broadly a positive picture for Anglos. I'm looking forward to ongoing strength there.
Yeah. All right, Warwick, appreciate the time. Always good chatting to you. Have a wonderful weekend. Good stuff here. Warwick Lucas is from Galileo Capital, getting to grips with this market picture. This week has certainly been a tumultuous one, and as you can tell, things continue to go that way too. All right, then, after the break, of course, we continue to give you your money. We have SME on point, books on point as well. The show goes on here on point. Do stay tuned, though. SABC News does continue. From me and the team here at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, that's where the buck stops.